Hello everybody, welcome back. Today I'm going to talk to you about why you need to be preparing if you are low carb. I'm going to do some details and maybe give you a different perspective on why I may not be crazy. We'll get to that in just a minute.
With every start, we are born again. Open your heart, spend less time in your head.
Hi guys. So, I know a lot of you are the type of people that would say, I'm not a prepper. I don't think anything is going wrong. I don't think we have any issues. My grocery store still has what I need. I can still get delivered to me what I want. So, no issues. I completely respect that. If that is your take on things and that is where you are at right now, I will allow you the courtesy to make that decision for yourself. However, there are a few things that you may not have considered that I want to bring up to you. So the first thing that I want anybody who has that mindset to think about that is in this space, in the low carb space, food is more to us than just nutrition, more than just fuel. No matter which way you look at it, our food has a purpose. Our food is actually medicine. Whether you are the strictest of carnivores all the way down to low carb, there is a reason that we choose to eat this way. Now, for some of us, it's not really much of a choice because if I don't eat this way, I'm not me. I lose control of my body, of my mind, so many other things. But we all have a reason for being here. I want you to consider our food to be our medicine. Now, in that scenario, I'm going to give you a couple of reasons that you may want to consider stocking up on some of your medicine, your food of choice, so that you can continue to stay healthy in nearly any situation. Right now, as I'm recording this, yesterday, for the first time in recorded history, there was a tornado in an area of Los Angeles. That's not normal. Don't know if you guys have seen the movie The Day After Tomorrow. Just throwing that out there. The extreme weather leads to more extreme weather, leads to more extreme weather. Well, from what I understand, this year alone has the potential to be the hottest summer on record because it is an El Nino year. And every El Nino, we seem to be going up by 1 to 2 more degrees Celsius every single year. So this could very potentially be the hottest summer that we have seen in our recorded history. What does that mean? That means that the power grids are going to be completely overworked, and a lot of them are going to give out. Now, to prevent that, some places may do what's called a rolling brownout. I had a lot of those over in California, tons of fun, where they schedule to turn off the power for 4 to 10 hours, anytime in there. And generally, it was in the hottest part of the day. What do you do with your fridge, with your freezers, and all of those other things should that happen? These are the types of things that I want each and every one of us to consider as a potential for why we may want to have some shelf-stable foods available to us in case of those emergency situations just from weather alone. Then we could always step on over to some of the chemical catastrophes that are happening in our country between train derailments and factories that are having these chemical leaks. There's a lot of people who have been told that they have to shelter in place, and then they're being told to evacuate in some cases. Some people are choosing to evacuate. If you had to do that, what would you be able to take with you? Certainly not your freezer. So that is yet another situation and where you might want to have some shelf-stable options available to you that you could grab and go so that you don't have to try to find the nearest grocery store with the frozen beef and find a way to be able to cook it. The weather alone is enough of a reason. Then you add the accidents that have been happening lately. Granted, I know that they always happen. We just hear about them more lately. But you add those on top of that, and then there's one final piece that I want to tell you about. Just as we know that we cannot always trust our doctors to tell us what's going to work best for us in terms of nutrition, the government also isn't going to bring us the best food in terms of nutrition when it comes to emergency situations. If this year does in fact turn into the year that it could be weather-wise alone, we could be looking at some incredibly powerful hurricanes that would be hitting the United States. In any of those areas, if they were to be hit dead on, what about the power? What about the grocery stores? What about the supply chains unable to get in to stock up the stores? Anyone who's ever lived in Florida, me being one of them, knows that you always need to have some extra food on hand. Well, if you do get into a situation where you have to have government assistance and they bring you things like MREs, I can tell you right now, those things are junk. And those are the types of foods that would absolutely not only bring back your addictions, but all of your aches and pains and your needs for medications as well. I would know. I actually own some of the emergency rations that are being sold commercially, and I've looked at those ingredients. We have chicken flavored rice or strawberry creamy wheat. Those are two of the highlights. I don't think that there was anything in there that had just plain meat. Everything had a huge bulk of carbs saturated through with vegetable oils or canola oil or soybean oil, and then teeny tiny little bits of meat that were thrown in there. But they get you up to their 2,000 to 3,000 calories that you're going to need for that day. Because we all know that calories totally matter when you're consuming that kind of food. So do not rely on someone else to be able to provide for you what you know that you specifically need. So with that being said, I'm going to give you some tips for starting low carb prepping. We're going to call this Class 101. Where to start? It seems ridiculously overwhelming and daunting when you begin to view things from that perspective. So number one that I'm going to give you is actually going to be salt and electrolytes, because we all have fallen in love with our Redmond real salt. I do have an affiliate link below just in case you want to go check them out. We actually ordered their 25-pound bags and we keep several of those on hand because with your salt, not only can you salt your food, but you can also salt your meat as a way of preserving it. Just like in the olden days when they were on ships and before refrigeration was invented, you would be able to heavily salt meat and it would prevent it from going bad for a much longer period of time. So if you can do the Redmond salt, absolutely fantastic. If you can't, a pink Himalayan salt, try to avoid the table salt, the umbrella gold salt as much as possible because it's got maltodextrin in it. But if it is the difference between salting your food with some Umbrella Girl salt and starving to death, let me tell you, I'm reaching for the salt in the little blue shaker bottle. But that's just me. You got to do what's going to work best for you. But making sure that your salt and your electrolytes are going to be able to be covered are super, super important, especially in an emergency situation. If your adrenaline is up, you're going to be sweating more. If you have to do anything higher activity than you're used to doing, you're going to need to replenish your electrolytes. So having some element packets or maybe some Redmond Relight, having those things available to you in an emergency situations could make a huge difference. So number two is kind of obvious. Canned meat, canned fish, canned veggies, something that is shelf stable, that is easily accessible at your grocery store. You can go buy it, put it in your cupboard, and it's there. Don't touch it, don't use it. As much as you can, try to get yourself a little bit of a store of food just for our special dietary needs to try to make sure that we will be able to get some nutrition in an instance like that. You can also look at freeze-dried meats or dehydrated meats. Now, my absolute favorite of all three of these honestly, it's all three of those for different things, for different reasons. I loved canned things for some things. My freeze dryer, I have a freeze dryer. I run it. It's literally running right now. I run it all the time. And then dehydrated gives you an entirely different texture, and it gives you a different scope, a different realm of foods that are available to you. So all three of them can be really wonderful options. I also can my own foods in glass mason jars with a pressure canner, water bath, open kettle, all kinds of options. So I do all of those things, and I have all of those things. The reason I have all of those things is I have backups for my backups. Because if I were to can something and say that the seal failed, I'm going to lose that food. Well, if that's my only source of food, that could be problematic. But if I have a can from the grocery store, that could be my backup, as well as my freeze-dried or dehydrated foods. I like to have backups for backups, but when you're starting, go with what you can get and what is most accessible and makes the most sense for you. Make sure that you store the food that you're going to eat. Don't buy the bag of rice and the bag of pinto beans just because it's labeled emergency food if you aren't able to eat it. So if you have a very severe condition like MS, you're not going to want to buy beans and rice. While yes, it could be the difference between life and death, at what point in time does your quality of life revert so much that it really wasn't even worth having those things on the shelf? Again, being prepared for us is even more important than everyone else in the normal world. So the next thing that I'm going to tell you about on my list is going to be spices, because the foods that you're going to have, be it dehydrated, freeze-dried, or canned, chances are you're probably going to buy a lot of the exact same thing. Well, if you want to not eat the exact same thing over and over again, spices can make a huge difference in that. Granted, if you're super strict carnivore, you've already got your spice. It's your salt, and you don't need to go any further than that. But for anyone who is low carb or keto, you're going to want to mix things up a little bit. I highly recommend that you go check out the site beefandbutterfast.com. They have absolutely fantastic spice blends. It's all for free. They tell you exactly how much of each spice to put in there. You can have things like Greek, dill pickle, barbecue, Cajun, Mediterranean. All of those are in there to give you an idea of the spices that you may want to have on hand so that you can create different flavor combinations to make the same old food taste like a brand new dish. Next on my list is going to be powdered or water glassed eggs. Now, I have eaten bad water glassed eggs. They were done improperly, and I think one or two of them may have cracked in the jar itself. They tasted rotten, but I have talked to many people since that have said, no, seriously, even as a carnivore, even as someone who is low carb, they taste the same if it's done properly. So I, in fact, have just started trying to water glass my own eggs. I am using 1/2 gallon jars, no bigger than that, because I don't want to chance anything getting broken from everything being too heavy in there. And I'm even doing a couple of quart-sized jars with my fresh chicken eggs. So look into that if that's an option for you. Otherwise, you can get some powdered whole eggs. We use it for our bread and all of these amazing recipes, but guess what? It makes amazing scrambled eggs as well. Unfortunately, the ones that come in the emergency food preparations, they have vegetable oil in them. The ingredients are eggs, vegetable oil. It's right there. So even those ones, you have to be very particular about which ones you're going to be eating. Whereas if you were to get a whole egg powder, like we use for the bread, with nothing else added into it, then that is going to last you a lot longer and be a much better option for you. Next on this list would be some really easy to grab, simple, pre-done foods, if you can afford them. If you can't, you can try making your own. So things like pemmican, the carnivore bar. I have their link down below as well. You can go and check them out. They have by far the best pemmican on the face of the planet. but I can't always afford that, so I make my own. Same thing with Carnivore Crisps. Again, link down below, but if you can't afford that, you can also make lap steak. And that is just a few of the ways that you can preserve or make your own food for long-term storage and preservation. But it's very easy to eat. It's already done ahead of time. If I have an emergency, I grab a handful of those carnivore bars. I will grab a couple of bags of my pre-done lap steak and I'm out the door. And that will last me for absolutely days. And a couple of cans of sardines too. But that will last me for days and sustain me and give me the energy and the nutrients that I need to get through whatever it is that I'm going through. So having those ready grab and go things can be really, really helpful as well, that don't require any heating, any water, anything else to be added to them. Speaking of water, a clean source of water is very, very important. All the chemical spills that we have going on right now would confirm that we need to have a store of clean water on hand. Now, some filters will be able to get out some, but from what I understand of a lot of these chemical spills that have happened in certain areas, you have to have a reverse osmosis plus UV plus something else on top of that to be able to get these teeny tiny particles out of the water in order for it to be safe for us to drink. So having some stored water, yes, it's probably going to be in plastic water bottles, but again, it's better than drinking the stuff that has the rainbow film up on the top of it. And we're just looking for something to get us by until we can get to a better product, hopefully not too far down the road. So having some way to filter your water is very important, but it's not always guaranteed to be enough. So a clean water source. After that, then you can begin looking at things like, how are you going to cook your food? Say that you are at home and because of the weather or a storm, you end up with no power. So now you can either eat everything cold or you need to have some options for being able to cook your food. In the wintertime, at my house, we're good because we have the wood burning stove with the cooktop on it. In the summertime, I have a fire pit outside that we're currently building. Well, once the snow is gone, we will finish building. That has a big giant grate that swings over it that I can cook directly on top of and over this fire. Things like a Dutch oven, a cast iron Dutch oven, are absolutely phenomenal for doing these things. Locking in moisture, you can build a fire outside, put it on top, put some coals on top, and let it go. So figuring out what you can do for cheap or all the way up to purchasing stoves that you can use inside your house. Make sure you know which ones are safe. You cannot use a camping propane stove inside of your house. That is not safe. So making sure to get the right tools and the right applications is very, very important. Finally, medicine. And this is kind of a tough one because most of us here have gotten off most of our medications, but some of us still have to take some. And some of those, you can't really get an extra supply of those things. So it may be worth looking into, asking your doctor if maybe you can get a little bit to keep on hand because the bad weather is coming, or finding natural alternatives to do the same thing that those medications are doing. Finding natural alternatives for those medications may be exactly what you need to do. And if you're a carnivore, yes, it's probably going to involve eating some plants. But again, it could be better than the consequences of not having that medication or herb that mimics that same medication and helps you deal with those symptoms. I know it's a lot, especially when you're just starting to look at it, but we don't have to be all doom and gloom and the world is ending and everything is absolutely horrible for us to realize that we really truly do need to take our health into our own hands a step further and make sure that in no matter what kind of situation, we are able to provide for ourselves so that we can continue to function to our best ability to get through whatever situation may befall us. I hope that you guys can look at this not with fear, but actually a determination to get some things put away for yourself in case the next big storm comes straight for you. In an ideal world, I would say start with a 3-month supply, because most of those type of instances would be fixed within 3 months. Look at the atmospheric rivers that are pouring into California and the 15 feet of snow up in the mountains as well in California. Some of those people don't have power and they're still working on it. So making sure that you are going to be able to last through whatever Mother Nature is going to throw at you could be your new superpower. We've found so many amazing healing benefits to being low carb. Let's not lose all of those things because of something as ridiculous as the weather. So I hope that this encouraged you guys to take a look at what you actually have on hand and what you can do to prepare yourself better for whatever may be coming in 2023. Because honestly, this roller coaster is probably just getting started. If you're new here, please subscribe and like this video and share this with anyone who you think needs to start preparing to be low carb in any circumstance. So thanks so much, guys, for checking in with me today, and I will see you on the way.
Let's just talk about how much good posture hurts.
Good posture hurts. My back is like screaming. I'm like,
Okay, I'm good.
This chair is.
It puts you through the ringer, man.
I should have, and I feel so doofy. I should have ordered a gaming chair.
I know.
And I didn't think about it.
I realized this after you got your cute little chair. That is ridiculously uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, it's not uncomfortable the minute you sit down in it, but after a good 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 15 minutes.
Yeah, you're like.
Especially after a long day of work.
At least I'm not the only one that says this. Says the 17-year-old girl that chair is uncomfortable. Oh well. Shoulda, coulda, wouldas.
Yeah, for some reason my hips will start hurting after I sit there for a while, and I'm like, I'm 17.
Rub it in. Okay, that'll work. Brightness. Hello, everybody. I did it again. I had to throw that in there. Come on. You know it was funny.
You're crazy.
Why? I may not be crazy.
You're totally crazy.
Yeah. Work best for us when it comes to there's a word. Huge bulk of carbs. There's a word. Not promote. All the chemical spills would.
What are you looking for?
Oh, clean water. We need clean water. All the chemical spills would. The only one I can think of is a really bad example, so we're not going to go there. Oh, my back hurts. Okay.